Königssee, Bavaria, round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-Man Bobsleigh World Cup. We're in the blue ribbon event here in the oldest artificial ice track in the business. And down there in the centre of your picture, with the white hat on, Richard Ajay Otto, German brakeman, who is a track record holder here with Manny Mahata. Well, hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, Olympic and world champion Kaylee Humphries, who was triumphant in the women's bobsleigh race on this track. In the first heat, we have got a very close battle on our hands. Germany were 1, 2, 3. Thomas Florschutz right in the middle of the group. Won in the two-man race in his home track in Altenburg a week ago and took a medal in the bobsleigh four-man event as well. He lies in third place. He is the second of two German sleds in our top three. Right in front of him is his young teammate, Max Arndt. Arndt, the first man out of the start shed today, and today's race for the first time all weekend has not been hit by heavy snowfalls. Great looking run from Max Arndt. Stay in front of the rest of the field. Looked as though he might have the lead into Heat 2. But that was reckoning without the man who has been in superlative form in the four-man all season long. That is Russia's Alexander Zubkov. 38-year-old veteran won the first 4 races of the season straight, took silver in race 5, and then skipped last week to go training in St. Moritz. He is back, and it doesn't seem that any of the shine has worn off. Zubkov in commanding form, but the gaps are tiny. He leads by just 0.05 of a second, and on this track, that is the blink of an eye. Well, Kaylee Humphries, 500ths is nothing, 600ths of a second is no advantage here. Anybody in maybe that top 6 sleds could take a medal.
Definitely possible. I mean, it's going to come down to starts and consistency at the driving. Zubkov, he's got an advantage there. He's been around for a while. He knows pressure is going to be on, but 600ths, I mean, that's one tiny little tap, one tiny little skid, a misstep at the start. It could be anything. So you're really pushing for hundredths of a second all over the place.
20 sleds go through from Heat 1 into Heat 2. Simone Bertazzo just making the cut. And as Corey Butler got in, he kicked out teammate Nick Cunningham, who was tied at the bottom of the pile with Chris Spring. They will be spectators, along with the other 8 sleds in that 21 to 30 group. They do not get a second run here. As you can see, beautiful conditions. Lots of snow over the last couple of days, and today skies are blue. Temperatures are below freezing. The ice is glassy and electrifyingly quick. It's minus 0.5 in the start shed. It's more like minus 5 degrees out. Kaylee Humphries, it's very cold, and the ice is going to be in the second heat just as fast in the first. And that's very different from how it's been in training or in the two-man race yesterday.
It has. This is the clearest weather we've seen. Normally it's rainy, snowy, ice has been softer. That means you've got a bit more grip. The runners are going to be a bit more sticky on it. It's kind of like driving with snow tires. Right now you're driving with slicks on icy conditions. You don't have a lot of controller grip, and the pilots are going to have to be precise to make sure that they nail those straightaways and not have any sideways movement.
You see the athletes warming up at the top of the track, and the crowds have been keeping warm at the Glühwein stands at the bottom of the track, ready to greet the athletes as they arrive at the bottom here. Simone Bertazzo, 20th in Heat 1, will go first as we go last to fast in our 20 down to 1 countdown. Gradjenovic of Serbia making the cut with a good, smooth first heat, so he's in the race, and the last to go will be Alexander Zubkov, our race leader. If he can put one over on those 3 German sleds, he'll be thrilled. The Bavarian crowd here will still greet him like a hero. And you can see lots of red, white and blue Russian jackets there in the bleachers down at the bottom as well. Getting ready to get things underway then. Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-Man Bobsleigh World Cup. The second and deciding heat here in Königssee, Bavaria, is kicked off by our 20th sled, Simone Bertazzo of Italy. With 2 new brakemen, Simone Fontana, Constantino Ughi, William Fulani on the back of this Italian sled.
As you can see there, in his push bar, he does have a whole bunch of holes. He's one of the only sleds that does. That's to help lighten the weight of the sled. There is a maximum weight, and with 4 big guys and you get close to that weight, you're really trying to cut any spot that you can. So instead of having a big metal push bar, you drill holes from that, and it takes out, you know, a couple 100 grams every single hole, which adds up.
4:99 first start, 5:04 second. Coming down the straight, and Kaylee, everybody leaning over the wall of the track as the sled comes past at 60 miles an hour. Does the driver see that?
They definitely see that. You can see people, you can't quite read faces, but you see colors and shapes of people, and you know who's wearing what. And sometimes, you know, as great as it is for the spectators to be really, really close, I mean, for a pilot, sometimes it's hard to see, especially in a bend away, trying to come around. You're trying to look as long and as far ahead as possible. It's like driving a car. You don't look right in front, you're looking way down the track, and when you see all those people's heads and faces, sometimes it can be a bit distracting, and that's where it takes experience and focus as a pilot.
Well, the crowd at a bobsleigh track, and especially here in Königssee, gets such a close view of the action from start to finish. Tatso threading a nice, tidy line here in these vital upper S's.
Comes out a light tap on the wall, again, nothing major, so you want to make those taps as little as possible and or minimize them altogether if you can, but they are slick conditions, and any little extra movement you don't want, so you'd rather take a tap than a skid.
49.8 first heat, 50.0 second heat. Now, the sun has been out, but it's not on the track. I wonder whether conditions have changed. We might find out with Vuk Radjanovic of Serbia, or Stegel, Nikolai Milinkovic and Damian Slatnar are the crew, and Vuk's been struggling with a hamstring injury all season. You can see his dad there helping in the Serbian jacket with the sled. And again, trying to clear off every ounce, every gram of ice, Kaylee. Weight is important, but not when you're trying to push a sled. You want it as light as possible when you're pushing, as heavy as possible when you're driving.
Definitely are. That, and you're trying to, I mean, it's cold outside, and any little wetness, it's going to freeze, and that makes it slick for the side guys, for the pilot, for the brakeman, and that's when you can risk slipping off.
5:02 start in Heat 1. Let's see if they can get in a little neater than their first attempt. They do. 5 flat. 42.8 into the first corner. That's better speed than the Italians managed, and 62.7 the same.
Tap there on the right-hand side, and again, not the smoothest straightaway. It's going to affect his speed down by the bottom.
Well, Toc still in the green, 1:23.5. He's going quicker than the Italians, while the clock is in the green. He is still in front. This may be the first time he has ever been in front of Simone Bitazzo of Italy. This is another good-looking drive from the Serbian.
It definitely is. Experience coming into play here, and he's really, you know, he's growing as a pilot.
Wow.
And you're seeing that here today.
That's a good run. 49.80 first heat, 49.82 in the second heat. And a 19th spot. That is a good run for Vuk. His previous best was 18th, and that was in Winterberg. Smaller field then. Well, we say he's in 19th position. Of course, he's only our second sled. He is our current leader. Others may slip behind him. There are some very small gaps in this field, Katie Humphries.
There definitely are. These tabletops here, a bit of a rough transition, comes across, hits the wall. You see the snow spray up. Those are all little tiny things, but they add up to tenths of a second. Makes for a rough ride for the guys and definitely slows down time, but consistency.
Well, now we have got the Dutch sled of Edwin van Kalken, and you saw him sitting in the sled in the first heat because he's re-injured the hamstring that he tore in Whistler before Christmas. Made a few steps in the two-man race yesterday, sat in at the start of the four-man, made the cut. It looks like he now is going to try and push at least a little. And that takes 100 kilos. No, he's not. He's going to have to sit in.
He's sitting in.
It adds an extra 100 kilos to sled and takes away 100 kilos of the mass that you're going to start it with.
It does. It's not just the added weight at the start that the number 2, 3, and 4 guy have to push. That's one extra person that's not contributing to that velocity and that speed, which you'll see around the first corner. You'll see a clock come up with the kilometers per hour, not the 42.7, but right here on the left-hand side of your screen. That's 62.9. That's the number to watch. That's what you want to see. The top guys are around 64, so that extra kilometer and a half, that's what they're missing by having a pilot sit in.
Well, despite sitting in, started just 100th of a second deficit to Vukradinovic of Serbia, and has now driven his way into the lead. Good speed, 124.2. That's better even than the first heat. He's really driving up a storm. Little rattly there through the S's, though.
He's having great runs, consistent. Edwin knows how to drive, especially on this track, and he's able to move himself up, regardless of the start or sitting in, into, you know, a better position, and that was a better run than first run.
Well, he's taken medals on this track before. That's not going to happen sitting in at the start, but a 49.60, as you say, Kaylee, 1600ths of a second of an improvement, and the Dutch are in the lead. They will finish no worse than 80th. You see, he can't even walk comfortably.
No, I mean, it's always hard when you've got injuries. But as he comes into Kreisel there, no major issues. I mean, this is the best we've probably seen the Dutch sit all year, one in behind the other. Helmet's not really rattling. So overall, you know, this is a good place for them.
A big Bavarian crowd down here at the bottom. Flags of nations as well. Lots of Austrians from just over the border. Maybe a few Poles as well. Certainly the camera crew here, who are Polish, will be cheering on Dawid Kupczyk, Daniel Zaleski, Pavel Moroz, and Marcin Niewara are the crew. And their second driver, Matthias Luthi, will be here next week for racing in Europa Cup. In fact, some of these World Cup crews are staying here because there's 1 2-man and 2 4-man races here next week. So they'll sacrifice going to Eagles to stay here in Königssee. 19th fastest start for this crew with a 4.99 in Heat 1.
Down and in, that push bar on that left-hand side is still a little bit out. Seems to snap back into place, though, before the first corner. 63 kilometers per hour going into that second corner there. Close, but still about a kilometer off some of the top guys.
Kelly, you can't come down that bending straight without hitting the wall, but that sounded a bit of a big hit, and the speed shows that it was. Yeah,
you're going to have those 2 hits, both on the left and the right. Those are mandatory hits. You're going to see every single person hit that straight. They set you up nice for Jenner corner.
Well, he's gone from a 10th up to 300ths behind, 1300ths behind. That big hit on the straight has slowed him down, and the Dutch move 1 up the order. The Poles slip down. Well, they were tied with the Dutch after the first heat, so Edwin keeps himself in a minimum of 17th place. So Netherlands lead with 16 sleds still to come, and this transition 3 to 4 always looks so hard to get the bobsleigh down.
It really does. The transitions here are really tight, and especially for a 4-man, the sleds are longer. You've got half the sled on one corner, and the other half of it, the back half of it on the corner that you were just on, and trying to control that can be tricky.
Insane. Do you fancy go at 4-man yourself?
I really do, and I am pushing for it as hard as I can. I did it once this year in Calgary. I hope to do it more in the future.
Next up is the silver medalist from the Junior World Championships in December in Eagles, Austria, and a World Cup rookie making his debut in 4-man this weekend and in 2-man yesterday, Oskars Kibermanis of Latvia. He's got a good, strong starting crew. He's 19 years old, Kaylee. He started driving at the end of last year. Talk about potential. 12 months in, even, he's on the World Cup.
I know, he's really impressed me. I mean, driving skill and ability, only being a couple years in this sport and driving, starting out as a driver, is extremely hard to do. Doesn't really have much knowledge of the sport, and to be doing as well as he is on the world stage, in and amongst with his best guys, I'm really impressed. He's definitely going to be one to watch for. Race in and race out.
You were world champion before he even started driving. That's insane.
It's very insane. Yeah, I'm very impressed.
And he's got nice, smooth touches. You can see why. They found this little diamond in the rough, and they're eager to polish him now in World Cup competition. And you know what? I think he's really holding his head up superbly. Little rough in the lower labyrinth, but he's still 2/10 up on the Dutch.
He is. Tiny little mistakes here and there, but overall, I mean, consistent, good drives, great start from him. Latvians always have, you know, a top starting time, and yeah, I'm excited to see where he goes over the next few races in the next couple of years.
The start was 500s quicker, the drive 1200s quicker, so an improvement in all areas for this Latvia 2 crew. Well, Oskars Kibermanis, remember that name. We tout around his teammate all the time, Oskars Melbardis. But in another 12 months, this kid might be giving Melbardis a run for his money.
Down and in, no major problems. He's probably one of the quickest pilots we've ever seen load. Comes around here, hits that second tabletop a little bit hard, but again, nothing major. He lets it run. The experience he's learning and growing as a pilot, it's great to see.
He is just full of excitement about being here. Next up, USA's Corey Butner. His first full World Cup season here in Europe. Jesse Beckham and Adam Clark joining the USA 3 sled with Johnny Quinn, who braked him in the two-man race yesterday. He's only the second US sled in the top 20. Unfortunately, Nick Cunningham did not make the cut, 21st. Let's go, boys! 15th fastest sled after Heat 1, Corey Butner, USA 3. And the boys get in neat and tidy, but Katie Humphries, this is the first time as a unit these four men have worked together in a sled, so commendable polish for that second start.
They have 63.1 kilometers per hour going into the beginning of the S's. You're definitely going to want to get that. The top teams, the Latvians, the Russians, are all closer to 64. You want that number to be a little bit faster. That's the only time you can really gain on this track and really put everything into it. Comes out of the straightaway, no major issues. Coming on Kreisel, looks like a nice line. Great exit off of Kreisel. No issues in the tabletops. He's having a really smooth run.
Chipping away a little bit of speed with every corner though, and another tap there will rob him maybe of a 10th by the line because it's uphill all the way. Another couple of hundreds goes west, 49.83 slides. So the young Latvian, Oskars Kibermanis, stays in the lead of the race. The US slipped behind Edvin van Kalker as well. There is van Kalker getting himself warmed up.
You see them really driving out here, really trying to push every single little ounce of energy they have into that sled. Trips a little bit getting in, steps on that bunk there, a little bit hesitant, kind of gets hit by the number 2 guy, gets in, a little bit rough down and in.
Not a bad drive from Corey Butner.
Comes across, hits that wall there, a little bit at the exit. Again, that's those little things, tenths of a second, that just add up and waste time on this track.
So we've had 5 sleds down, 15 still to go, and this is Jürgen Loacker, who's in 14th spot with Matthias Adolf, Mate Juhart and Markus Sammer. We are less than an hour's drive from the Austrian border, well less than an hour's drive. Oskars Kibermanis leads for Latvia.
4.98 start from Jürgen Loacker.
Okay, that's a better start. They started 5.02 in the first heat. They could have really done with a 4.98 in heat 1 as well.
They definitely could have. The start on this track is so important, and there's just some key parts that you really got to be able to nail and in order to keep speed on this track.
1:24.0 is decent speed. Quickest so far, bizarrely, has been Edvin van Kalker into that Kreisel turn.
The start's important, but it's also about the drive and taking that speed with you. He's ahead, made up some speed and some time down at the bottom, which is from the experience and driving.
By 500ths of a second, he just squeezes in front of the Latvians. That's a tiny margin. He only got it below that tabletop section, the lower labyrinth. So those uphill corners, he somehow managed to carry speed into them.
And that just comes from experience and driving, and that's those little things that Oscars just doesn't quite have at this point yet that Jürgen does have, but given time, everyone develops it.
Lots of red and white of Austria here.
Little bit of a hit and a skid out of S4 down into Kreisel. 124 speed, one of the closest near the top that we've seen, but I think we're going to definitely see faster as more and more sleds come down.
There is Jürgen Loacker being interviewed on the microphone at the bottom of the track here as we get ready for another crew in red and white. And this is Canada 3, Justin Cripps. He's got James McNaughton, Jean-Nic Carrier and Sam Giguère in the 4-man lineup of Canada 3. So again, Canadians are mixing and matching their athletes, trying to get the best start for all of their sleds.
These guys, and we've seen these guys work well together. I mean, Jean-Nic and James have been side guys for Justin Cripps all year, adding Sam on the back. I mean, they're really working well together. They're a young crew, up and coming, but definitely forced to be reckoned with.
A 4:88 start, again quicker than their first getaway, and again the load looked a little more polished in the first heat. Kaylee, we saw quite a lot of crews just struggling to get in cleanly.
They did. I know these guys practice time in, time out. I see it, I watch it, and you know, it's definitely an advantage to them, and that's where they have the faster starts.
1900ths of a second up. Justin Cripps holding on to his lead at the moment.
123.6, not one of the fastest speeds that we've seen, but he's got a lot of time in the bank, and so I think, you know, he's going to be able to hold on.
Vital exit off Echo Vance. If he can avoid the tap, he does. 700s, it's going to be close, but has he got enough steam to carrying up the hill to the lead? He does. Wow. Well, you always want to hold your position, even if it's a tie or 100th of a second advantage. You don't want to slip back.
You don't, but this was a great drive. Consistency from Justin Cripps. He's really learning and growing as a pilot, and, you know, great starts from the guys overall. Good result.
Well, this is so vital to every bobsleigh run, the power and getting into the sled.
It definitely is. He comes around that last corner, though, a little bit high, but drops out and goes dead straight into that uphill section. I mean, that's important. That's the nicest that I've seen out of a lot of the pilots. So good job from Justin Cripps.
Big thumbs up from Cripps, and nice to having Emily showing the #1 sign as they came down. Now, off the second fastest start, tied with Justin Cripps for 12th in Heat 1, John Jackson of Great Britain. Jacko, the driver, could not get into the sled, almost didn't make it in, and I've never seen that before, the brakeman in and the driver not. Luckily, he did get in. They got down in 12th. Stu Benson, Bruce Tasker, Joel Fearon, only 200s away from the fastest starters. There are your leaders, Justin Cripps and the crew. John Jackson will desperately be hoping for a really smooth load here. These boys have got some speed this year.
John definitely has experience driving over Cripps, and this crew definitely, although it's a new crew, up and coming, starting exceptionally well, fastest we've seen from GB in a very, very long time. 485, great start.
Load, and they get the momentum they need into the first corner. 43.9 is the quickest we've seen.
63.7 going into the first S's, a little bit faster than Justin.
800ths of a second is the advantage. He's creeping away from Justin Cripps by an inch at a time. 123.8, a little quicker than the Canadian sled had managed as well.
Not by much. It's going to come down to these last hundreds. He's still leading, 1300s ahead. We'll see what he can do down this bottom portion.
Neatly through the lower labyrinth. Exit here's got to be perfect. Little rattle on the wall. He's got 2/10 in hand. This should put him in front of Canada 3, and it does. 49.35 remains to be seen if he can climb a little further up the order. Next couple of sleds were only a few hundreds in front. Well, Jackie looking a lot happier. Paula Walker there at the front and Jill Cook at the back helping out with the boys' sled, as the boys do with the girls. Well, it wasn't quite as fast a start, but it was an awful lot neater, Kaylee, and that gets the energy into the sled instead of dissipating it somewhere else.
It really does. Every ounce of that start went into that sled, and you saw it in that first start speed clock. He had a good straightaway, no major issues, definitely much better drive than the first one, and you know, he definitely is going to put pressure on Dimitri and the rest of the sleds that are left to come that are extremely close and tight.
35-year-old Royal Marine Commando John Jackson and the Team GB have the lead with 11 to go. See British flags being waved there at the top for him. And you can hear the balalaika music for Dmitry Abramovich with Denis Moishenkov, Dmitry Stapushkin and Alexei Pushkarev. On the back of the Russia 3 sled, Coach Pierre Luders watching intently.
Down and in, 489 start. Good start from Dmitry. See what he can do here. That entrance into the first S is so critical. You don't want to go in a little too early, but you also don't want to go in late. So timing is very critical. The transitions in those top 4 S's really takes the speed down into the straightaway. And again, here he had no major issues.
He's a fraction behind, 1:23, 1/7 of a kilometre an hour down on the current leaders, GB1. So he needs to be perfect here.
He's a 1/10 of a second behind, and you know, doesn't quite have the speed. He wasn't faster than Jackson, and he wasn't faster than Cripps, 2/10 down. I think we're going to see him drop a couple spots here.
Yes, he might just do. Cripps 2800s behind the line. That was only a 6th fastest run in the second heat, and he slips to 3rd. So Justin Cripps moves up, and John Jackson moves up as well. Well, they had a good-looking start, but it started to unravel down the track.
Transitions in through here, S3 down into S4, a little bit low on those transitions. You want to be a little bit higher to be able to have those sweeping momentum.
There is Dimitri, and here is our top 10. John Jackson of Great Britain leads from Justin Cripps and Dmitry Abramovich. We've had 10 of our 20 sleds down in round 7 of the Wiesmann 4-Man Bobsleigh World Cup in Königssee, Bavaria.
And still in the lead, the team of Great Britain. Hi guys. Hello everybody, how are you? Describe the feeling breaking here and getting out of the sled. It's a very classic experience after that coming here. I was one of the best at the beginning. And the crowd, amazing crowd. Thank you, good luck. Hi guys, the thank you for us. Thank you. Also natürlich den Parcours großartig und natürlich euch auch großartig. Wir müssen sich an dieser Stelle mal anschließen. Das ist Wahnsinn. Das macht so Spaß. Und übrigens, nicht nur, wenn hier die Kameras an sind, die Athleten immer bei jeder Gelegenheit sagen mir, wie großartig das ist, wie kribbelig das ist, wenn sie hier aufsteigen und euch dann hören. Also das ist einfach großartig. Danke. Danke sehr.
Welcome back. Big crowd down here at the finish area in Königssee, Bavaria, round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-Man Bobsleigh World Cup. Great Britain lead with 10 sleds to go. And on the top of the ice is Bert Hefty, the Swiss 1 team, only second of the 2 Swiss sleds in the first heat. Martin Haven and Olympic and world champion Kaylee Humphries calling the action. And Kaylee, for Bert Hefty, job one is to beat his teammate Rico Pater, who beat him in Heat 1.
Which is very unusual. We're usually seeing Hefty a lot closer to the top, a lot farther up the order. 488 start.
Well, that was 100 slower than their first heat, and that's not going to help.
Again, the little skids and the little hits all the way down that straightaway, just, they add up.
Still had 1:23.7. That's the third quickest speed we've seen so far into the Kreisel. Oops.
His 400's up, but I don't know. I mean, you're going to see it down at the bottom. That straightaway, it really doesn't add up until you get to this section. Now only 100th of a second ahead, and I have a feeling he just doesn't have the speed.
And he doesn't, and he drops to second, and that's a top 10 finish for Great Britain, and they are delighted with that. Best finish of the season for John Jackson, 5th in Whistler. And the worst 11th last weekend in Altenburg, back up into the top 10 for the man who's 5th in the World Cup rankings of 4-man. Hefty takes a while to climb out of the sled. That was definitely not from his top draw.
No, definitely not. We're used to seeing him a little higher up. A bit more of a 2-man specialist versus 4-man, still learning and trying to break into that 4-man genre per se, but it's just those little things that add up, and you don't really see it until you get to the bottom of the track time-wise. But
well, that was not the driving that won Bert Hefty the 4-man gold in La Plagne, that's for certain. That was his first ever World Cup 4-man win as a driver. See who some of the fans fancy here, can't you? They're going to have to wait a little while before they get the cowbells out for the German sleds. Gregor Baumann not here, but brother Alex Baumann was on Bert Hefty's sled. This was the better of the Swiss pair there in Heat 1. Rico Pater, Thomas Ruff, Patrick Blöschlinger and Simon Friedli. Switzerland too was in 9th spot after the first heat. Amazing, Kaylee Humphries. So many people at the start, and yet you can literally hear a pin drop when a sled's getting ready to go.
you really can. I mean, the cheering, you got a lot of people at the start, and commands have to be loud, but at the same time, I mean, just as in golf, everyone goes dead quiet when those commands and calls need to happen, because you need to be able to hear your teammates.
And interestingly, nobody here shouts, "Get in the hole," either. So less irritation than golf. 1:24.7, top speed into the Kreisel. He's tied with John Jackson of Great Britain. If he gets the labyrinth right, he will take the lead, though.
800's up. He's got the speed. It's just going to be whether he can maintain that around this corner and up this straight. Light tap, no major issues. He's going to be able to. A 10th ahead, no issues. He'll walk away with the lead right now.
Yes, he does. 49.33. He stays in the lead with 8 sleds to go. John Jackson of Great Britain guaranteed at least a 10th place finish, and he will take that definitely in a big field here.
He's going to be stoked with that result. All of those guys did a great job. Nice loads. You see him come a little bit of rock back at the start. Swiss, we've noticed him start doing that. Some of the German teams as well, trying to bring back that old school style, what we saw years and years ago. But you see Rico jump in there, no issues. 2 guy gets in, 3 gets in, they're down, they're in. Comes around this last corner, Echo Wand, able to really accelerate the sled out. A light little rub, but again, you don't really see snow or anything spray up behind, so not much of a disadvantage.
Rico Pater there, saluting the crowd. Of course, they'll be on home ice for the World Championships in St. Moritz in 2 weeks' time. And what about Stephen Holcomb? He's our Olympic 4-man champion. He's our world champion from last February in 4-man, but this year seems to be on a little bit of a roller coaster. 2 silver medals in North America, followed by 4th, 6th and 7th places. And at the moment, only 8th here in Königssee.
This is unusual. We're not used to seeing Holcomb down at this end of the scale. First round, they had the 3rd best start, so we're used to seeing him a little bit higher up. 484, great start. We'll see what the speed is.
44.0 is great speed, and 64.0 as well. They're carrying the momentum.
They are. We'll just see what Holcomb can do down at the bottom. He's got the experience. He knows how to drive.
Swerves from the wall, going to take a tiny tap and a little hit there.
But much better than first run, though. He had a big skid first run.
1:23.6, a kilometre an hour slower than the Swiss Rico Peter.
Just doesn't have the speed today. Don't know why or what that is.
Is he steering too much on the straight?
Possibly. He could be steering too much in the corners, working too hard, not letting the sled run where it looks smooth, it looks nice. You just don't have it. But to tie the Swiss, I mean...
Well, to be tied with Swiss too, exactly, and still with 7 sleds to go. Not where Holke and the Night Train want to find themselves.
No, definitely not. Swiss sleds are running exceptionally well, though, especially here. Running real fast, you just got to let them fly in. You know, I'm not sure if it's the Night Train, if it's the driving, just the speed not quite there today. You see him, no major issues, light tap there on the wall. Everyone's taking that tap, but I mean, he's one of the slower speeds we've seen.
Well, listen,
unusual.
We're 400 days out of Sochi, so there is still lots of time for the Olympic champion to return to form, and we're still 2 weeks away from the 4-man World Championships. Again, lots of time to get the Night Train motoring back at top form.
And Holcom's got the experience, he knows how to do it, he just needs the opportunity.
Hell yeah. 7 sleds to go here in Königssee, Bavaria. Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man Bobsleigh World Cup. Martin Haven, Olympic and world champion Kaylee Humphries calling the action with Alexander Kasyanov. The first of 2 Russians in the top 7. And the last will go last. Our race 1 leader, Alexander Zubkov. Brought out these guys, and they stay in front of Steve Holcomb and the Night Train. They managed to squeeze in front by 500s in Heat 1. 4:90, their 500s lead. That was a 600 slower starter.
It was 63.6 kilometers per hour into that first S, slightly slower than what we saw with the Americans, who had one of the fastest start speeds. Nice straightaway though, still swimming around a little bit. You can see Pilot having to work hard for that fast line, and he's got a faster speed, 124.1 down in through Kreisel.
Steve Holcomb yesterday saying he chose the wrong kit for the 2-man race, and that's not the sled, that's the runners. I wonder whether the runner choice wasn't quite right for these very cold conditions here in Königssee. The Russians still a fraction in front, Kaylee. And he just squeezes in. Well, he was 500s in front of Holcomb in Heat 1, 400s in front in Heat 2.
It comes down to very, very close racing. He was losing time. It's just on this track, the track is short, and, you know, good thing for the Russians. Yeah. It ended when it did.
Another couple of turns into being behind.
Comes into S2 there, a little bit high, but again, nice transition. Seems to be able to get really early height and nice height in these S corners, which is crucial, and I think that's where he's able to take the speed down.
You want to use it like the high banking and dive off the end of it, but the timing's got to be so precise to do so. Next up, yesterday's, beg your pardon, next up is Oscars Melbardis, tied with yesterday's 2-man gold medalist, Lyndon Rush. They were joint 5th after Heat 1, 0.3 of a second off the lead, and definitely within shooting distance of the medals. And Melbardis yesterday, 2 stunning runs in the 2-man. I think the best we've ever seen him drive. There's your leader on the left, Alexander Kasyanov, with 6 sleds to go.
Oscars is definitely the fastest starting team we've seen in a very long time on this circuit. They're so dominant in 2-man and in 4-man. Not just in the time, but also in the speed, which around this first corner, you'll see in the bottom left-hand side of your screen, 4.97. That's faster than we saw first run.
200s away from their all-time track record of 4.77. And he had great speed as well, but still not getting 44 or 64 kilometers momentum, and drifts into the wall.
Those 2 little taps, those are mandatory. You got to take those to set you up for Jenner and then for Kreisel. You take the taps versus the skid.
Good speed, but Rico Peters 124.7, still the fastest. Little rocky in the labyrinth.
He's got 2:10s up, though. We'll see what he can do in these last couple corners. Doesn't quite have the same speed, but he seems to be holding on. Still 2:10s up. He'll walk away with the lead, no problem.
Shooting for the medals, a 49.28 run. His first was a 49.23. That is remarkable consistency. Don't forget, when you won your Olympic title in 2010, this kid was braking for Yannis Minins. He's only started driving since the fall of 2010. So he's still really developing fast.
He is extremely fast, which is great to see. This is year 3 for him as a pilot. I remember what that feels like, and I mean, he's in the upper echelons of everybody up here. Consistent runs yesterday in 2-man and 4-man. It's going to be in no time. You're going to see him up in the top 3 consistently.
Well, he's taken 1 medal this season, bronze in Winterberg in the 4-man. He took silver yesterday in the 2-man. He is clawing his way to the top of the greasy pole. Tiny bit rocky and rolly down the bottom, and like all drivers, been hypercritical. He was watching that and thinking, oh, got to tidy that line up again.
There you go, you got the Canadian girls down helping everybody. Yeah. It's a friendly group of bobsledders, and everyone's really out to help everybody. Most of the Canadian girls, one of them sitting in the warm and the dry alongside me, Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries. Your teammate Lyndon Rush now, feel free to cheer. Cody Sorensen, Lascelles Brown and Jessie Lumsden. Again, little bit of moving around of the crew. They got a good start of 4.88 in the first heat. Yeah, we're not used to seeing Jesse on the brakes, but he definitely has the foot speed. He's got the strength. Again, a little bit of confusion and mix-up with number 2, number 3. Bit of a skid getting out of those grooves from those guys. When 2 and 3 are a bit mixed up, and Lyndon, he's got to grab those D-rings right away. It's you see that with the 63.4. They're not taking every little bit of, you know, velocity that they can out of that start.
1800ths of a second down. Canada 1 in the red compared to Latvia 1. That means he's been behind since the start. 1:24.0.
Good speed. Lyndon knows how to drive this track. We saw it yesterday. He had a great first run as well.
He's still not catching, still behind in second place, 2200s back. He's now dropped to 3rd behind Melbardis and Kasyanov. He beat Melbardis out of sight in Heat 2 yesterday. The Latvian stays on top of the pile. Lyndon Rush drops to 5th position with a training run that somehow crept into competition.
That was all at the beginning. So A, you see that load at the very beginning with number 2 and number 3 guy hitting each other, and then B, the skid out of the grooves, that will waste a couple tenths, and then from that Teufelsmühle, that first corner down into S1, you see Lyndon, he's really trying to drive it. You can see the sled move, but you see there, and it goes, not quite sure. He avoids hitting the wall, which is good, but again, it's just those little tiny mistakes, and especially at the top of this track, there's just, you run out of time to really make it up.
Well, 0.3 of a second slower than his first heat. He'll be disappointed with that. Stalks away, helmet still on. Oskars Melbardis of Latvia, silver medalist yesterday, leads with 4 sleds to go in the 4-man race here in Königssee in Bavaria. And the Germans swept the podium last week in Altenburg in the 2-man and the 4-man. Could they do it again? Manny Mahata, Thomas Florschutz and Max Arndt all chasing Russia's Alexander Zubkov, the first heat leader. We're in Bavaria. This is about as intense a bobsleigh crowd as you get. Can they produce the result here? Mahata is the first to be tested. Alex Mann, Yannis Becker, Christian Poser, the crew.
Down and in, 4.89 start.
100th quicker than their first heat. They know what they're up against, don't they? They're up against Melbardis. They're trying to focus on what's in front, Kaylee, but what's behind is still nibbling away.
It really is. Pressure is high. Nice straightaway, definitely much better than first run.
600s behind at the start, still 600s behind into the Kreisel, but top speed 124.8. He's motoring now, he's in front.
He really is. You can hear the crowd. He's 100th up, but that speed is huge, and he's really, I think he's going to accelerate out. 500ths up now, and he's going to keep going.
Is this going to put him into the medals? It puts him into the lead, 49.24.
Very nice run by Mahata. Great start by those guys. You can see the crowd cheering. It's a great crowd here. Everyone's super energetic.
Great noise, great reception for everybody here, but it's just amped up a little more for the German teams, Kaylee, and you've got to understand that.
They definitely can. These people know their bobsled, and they love it when their German the homeboy, you know, he represents. A little bit of a tap there out of S4, but he knows how to control it. He knows this track. He's got experience driving sleds. Didn't cost him anything. Top speed down in before Kreisel.
He made the same mistake in the first heat. I was surprised to see him tap on that inner wall second time around. Still hasn't quite got the feel there.
No, it's a hard corner this year. Very, very challenging, but he's letting the sled run, and sometimes it's faster to do that and take the tap than to really control it.
Germany lead with Manuel Mahata. 3 sleds to go. Thomas Florschutz and Max Arndt for Germany. Alexander Zubkov for Russia. In the centre of the picture there, Alex Mann. Went to school in Scotland. Speaks great English. Thomas Florschutz of Germany then. Adi Bredau, Kevin Kuska and Thomas Plaschek. This to stay in the medals.
Die Startzeit für Thomas Florschutz, 4,86.
486.
Kaylee, that's identical to their first heat start time, and there were 6 quickest crew to get away, 3rd by the bottom of the track.
63.9 start speed going into the first S. That's great speed. One of the fastest, if not the fastest, we've seen on this second run. Nice straightaway, great S4. We'll see what his speed is here coming into Kreisel, 124.5. Not quite as fast as Mahata, but again, one of the top speeds.
Now the gaps come down, 1600s, 1500s, 1100s. The exit of Echo Vant will seal his fate one way or the other. It's a good one.
It is a 10th up. We saw Manny Mahata really accelerate here, but Florschutz is going to walk away with it. 700s.
Into single digits. That's not the kind of margin of error that you walk away with here. Wow, that's close between the 2 German sleds. Germany 1-2, 2 to go.
Pressure is definitely on Max Arndt coming up and Zubkov, so we'll see what they can do here. Good push. You've got 3 huge guys that are really pushing this, and well, 4 huge guys. They're all real big, and so you trying to cram them into this tiny little bathtub size thing, but they make it look so easy. Comes across, hits the second tabletop, little bit rough, but again, Thomas is letting it fly, letting it run. He's able to control it.
Lots of noise for Thomas Florschutz at the bottom of the track. Dead silence for Max Arndt at the top. 6'7" of Marco Hubenbecker at 2. Alex Rödinger at 3. And Martin Putzer on the back handles. Max Arndt, start draw number 1. He went first in heat 1, last but 1 in heat 2. So plenty of time to think about how to beat Alexander Zubkov.
These guys, although the last 2 sleds, Mahata and Thomas Florschutz, really, you know, laid down good runs, I know Max is going for an even better run in order to really rival with Zubkov.
483 first heat, 486 in the second heat.
63.7, not quite as fast as what we saw from them in first run, but still, you know, one of the top that we've seen in this second run. Nice exit out of S4, down and through the straight. Light little rubs, but again, nothing major. 124.5, one of the top fastest speeds that we've seen for this second run.
Here he comes, still 800ths of a second in the lead.
We'll see what he can do here. We saw Thomas, you know, start to drop a little bit, just had that advantage over Mahata.
Great exit, 900ths up. He's tiny increments of his lead being added, 49.29. Is that enough? He slid a 48.97 in the first heat. That's 0.3 of a second slower, with all these 690 kilo sleds running down the track. It does start to degrade.
It does slightly. We're starting to see that, but, you know, Max was able to really push it and get everything out of it. These guys, I mean, a really, really strong starting team. Great velocities. They really get in. Awesome load. Experience at its finest right here. We saw this, you know, last week when they won in Altenburg in 4-man, and they definitely put the pressure on Zubkov to see what he can do for the second round.
Well, that win in Altenburg put Max Arndt at the top of the World Cup rankings. Let's see if they can stay on top. This is the 5th event of the weekend. The Germans have not got a gold medal yet. Alexander Zubkov of Russia is looking to keep that streak alive and claim win number 5 of his season. The Russian is imperious in his form this season. I don't think I've ever seen him drive better. There are your current leaders. Max Arndt, third from left, and his crew. Mark and Hubenbecker, head and shoulders above anyone else. So Alexander Zubkov then, with everything to do. Alexei Nedogailo, Dmitry Chunenkov and Maxim Krusov are the crew. 484 first heat, he's quickly in, Zubkov, and the crew follow. 483, that's a big start. That is the second fastest of the heat.
Big start, huge start velocity, 64.1. That's the fastest we've seen out of first or second run. So not only do they have a fast start time, they've really put so much energy and velocity and speed. Little bit of a skid there down in the bottom part. We'll see how much that affects him.
124.3 behind the Germans. He's still up on time, but has he got speed to get him to the line in front?
He's got to be clean down in here through these tabletops. He is no major issues, but again, it's going to come down to Echo 1 and how he does this last straightaway before these last 2 corners.
Nearly 2 tenths up. He hits the wall again, but he can afford to. He's got just enough speed to claim his 5th win of the season by 2 tenths of a second. Wow! Pierre Luders, he smiles. 49.15 run. Alexander Zubkov wins. And the Germans have not got a gold medal all weekend here in Bavaria. Well, despite the fact that the Russian has beaten all 3 German sleds, he still gets a hero's welcome down here at the bottom. Like the drivers, like the brakemen, the fans here love this sport. In fact, the least mobile of the group of Russian jackets in the back of the grandstands there. They're barely even moving. Come on, boys, jump up and down a bit. Your guys have just won another gold medal. Well, Kaylee Humphries, you know what that feels like. Yesterday, you claimed your 6th gold medal of the Friday. You claimed your 6th gold medal of the season. Feels good to get back to winning, right?
It really does. It's always great to be back on top. I mean, he lost it a bit in La Plagne and he didn't compete last week in Altenburg, but definitely to be able to come back after their Christmas break, their little breakaway, and be able to, you know, the first race back, win it. It feels great, and he'll just keep that momentum going.
Look at that grin. That says everything you need to know. If anybody has ever seen Zubkov in better form, please do let us know, because he is just startlingly good at the moment. This is the winning run from Alexander Zubkov. First heat, he had 0.06 of a second advantage. Second heat, as you did yesterday on Friday, as Lyndon Rush did yesterday, he motored away. There's just something extra about being in a tight race, maybe, Kaylee Humphries, that gives you that extra juice.
Definitely possible. I mean, pressure's on, pressure's big. He's got the experience, and he's really going to maximize it. And he did second run to walk away with a 2/10 lead over, you know, the next 3 German sleds.
Confirmation of that result. Alexander Zubkov winning by 2/10. Germany second, third, and fourth. And we'll hear their thoughts in just a second.
Ganz schnell, 2 Minuten, wenn wir jetzt mal die genaue Zeremonie machen, dann dauert es noch 2 Minuten, aber nicht wirklich lange. Sieht ja dann drüben beim großen Podium die große Siegerehrung machen mit der Nationalhymne und natürlich
A big crowd here at Königssee in Bavaria has seen Alexander Zubkov of Russia claim win number 5 of his season. And he is back in fine form, closing in on Maximilian Arndt, who is our World Cup leader after taking the silver medal here, ahead of teammates Thomas Florschutz and Manny Mahata. Mahata third in the World Cup rankings. John Jackson of Great Britain remains in 5th place, ahead of World and Olympic 4-man champion Steve Holcomb. Jürgen Loacker, after a disappointing day here, still somehow rounding out the top 10. Well, lots of action still to come. 2 more World Cup races at Eagles next week and Sochi a month from now. And that will be where we see what Zubkov can do on the track that we'll use for the 2014 Winter Olympic Games at Cayley Humphreys. If we think he looks good everywhere else, how good is this guy going to look on home ice, I wonder?
Definitely good. He's experienced. He knows he's going to be working it for every little bit that he's got. Great to see Russian program so strong right now. They got to be super happy with that, and we're less than 400 days away from Sochi.
Yeah, he's just got to stay fit and focused for the next year and a month, and in this sort of form, it's really hard to see him being beaten. Well, let's find out what he thinks about it, and the rest of our top 3 get down and join John Morgan.
Flower ceremony here in Bavaria for our 5th and final event of the weekend, and Formula One pilot from Germany giving away the flowers away here. Quite a scene down here. If you ever get a chance to want to watch a bobsled race where the crowd's educated, this is it. This is like being in the Montreal Forum for hockey. This is pretty exciting, dude. And now the flowers to the #1 team, Alexander Zubkov, his 5th time in the... So now we're going to go right away to... Here. Okay, guys, wave at the finish. Here we go. A quick photo op for our numerous photogs down here. Okay, now we're going to go to our 3rd place finisher team, Thomas Florschutz. Thomas, good starts, good drives. You have to be happy.
Ich bin sehr glücklich. Es hat endlich im Vierer mal wieder alles gepasst. Ich war noch nie so gut hier in Königssee wie dieses Jahr, Platz 3. Ich denke, das ist genau die richtige Form für in 2 Wochen St. Moritz. Ich denke, wir sind auf dem richtigen Weg.
Yeah, he's very happy with the result. Everything went well for him, and he's on his way to St. Moritz. Now over to the 2nd place team, Max. Team Max R. Team, good drive, Max. You have to be happy. The start's okay.
Ja, wir sind sehr zufrieden heute. Die Jungs waren großartig oben am Start. Wir konnten das erste Mal auch mit den Russen mithalten, mit dem Alexander oben am Start. Er war auf der Bahn leider wieder ein bisschen schneller als wir. Wir haben noch ein bisschen zu arbeiten bis zur WM, aber sind jetzt erstmal sehr glücklich und können wieder angreifen.
Yeah, he's very happy with everything that happens here in Königssee. Silver medal, tough competition. Now to Team Alexander Zubkov, another victory. First victory of 2013. Happy New Year.
Спасибо всем болельщикам. Команда отработала на 100%. Вот он результат.
He's very happy, obviously. Gold medal for Russia again. Congratulations.
Both the Germans saying too many mistakes creeping in, still got a lot of work to do for the World Championships, but Alexander Zubkov, the grin says it all. Cayley Humphreys, he's in as good form as I think we've ever seen him.
Definitely is, and it's very exciting and, you know, very encouraging to see. It's great work by Zubkov and his whole crew.
Thanks to Cayley Humphreys and John Morgan, and thanks to you for joining us here in Königssee, Bavaria, on behalf of the FIBT TV crew here. We'll see you next time out. I'm Martin Having saying Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.